When it comes to using AI to transform your business or a specific workflow, one of the more challenging aspects is identifying the right use case. Ed Ortega is a partner at Machine and Partners, where he helps companies identify and implement AI use cases with transformative business value. He and Machine and Partners have developed two frameworks, DEW and VVV, to help organizations both identify and prioritize use cases. Ed, introduce us to DEW and VVV.
Hey, Stu. Yeah, these frameworks are ones that we use when we first interact with customers to just get a sense of like where the value is in an AI use case. Because there are lots of AI use cases that you can do, but are they good ones? Are they going to move the needle for your business? And so this helps us get aligned with our clients around what those things might be. So the DO framework, or we say look for DO, is data, expertise, and workflows. So do you have enough data to give to the AI to help it bring value? And that data could be anything. It could be video, it could be text, it could be telemetry, anything really. It needs to be enough of it there for the AI to work with. Otherwise, if you don't have the data, what are you relying on? You're just relying on the knowledge of the AI model itself. So if you don't give it something, you're just basically using an off-the-shelf model, and there's not a lot of value there, most likely.
How do you know if you have enough data?
I mean, it's typically it's involved in the process that you're doing. So if that data is critical to the process or the value that you deliver as a company, or it is something that you create as a company, then that's when you know. So for example, we have a client that is an education company, and one of the things that they do is they develop this educational content. Well, that content is the data, right? We can give it to the AI, and the AI can do things with it. Like it can teach it, it can augment it, it can extend it, it can create examples from it and stuff like that. So without that content, all we would be doing would be creating lessons from scratch from the AI's general knowledge, and that would be very generic and not very high value.
Right. Right. So you start with the data.
Yep. The next one is expertise. This is, I think, often overlooked because we tend to believe that the AI is so smart that it just knows everything. But what it doesn't know are the things that your employees happen to have learned over their tenure at your company, right? They've been doing their jobs for 5, 10, 15 years, and they've amassed a lot of knowledge in their head. So what we want to do is we want to take that knowledge and encapsulate it into the AI system so the AI can think like they do. If you don't have that, then the AI can make weird decisions based off of its general knowledge, which might not be applicable to your business. So in this case, in the example I was just using, that knowledge might be the education designer's approach to developing curriculum or to developing exercises. They might say, hey, we know from working here for a long time that it's best to break a lesson into 3-minute chunks and not to do 15-minute lessons. And we know that colorful graphics help the user get comfortable with the content versus just having a bunch of text. So all these little things that they've learned over the years, we want to give those hints to the AI and build that into the system so that it behaves more like an expert and less like a generic AI model.
Yeah. And you capture that expertise through interviews, uploading, I don't know, relevant memos or thought leadership, or how do you get the machine trained to be an expert?
Yeah, well, several ways. I think superficially, we just do it by interviews. We ask people about their jobs and how they do it, and that gets us up to speed. But I think the most important thing that we do is with any project that we work on, we kind of demand that the company give us one of these subject matter experts so that we can put them onto the development team. Their integration into the development process is super critical because they're the only one that can judge whether the AI is outputting high quality material. The developers will never, they don't understand your business enough, and they'll never be able to have that judgment that a subject matter expert does. So in order to move quickly, we need that person like directly on the team looking at the output every day.
So we have D, we have E. Let's
And the
talk about
last one is
W.
W, workflows. So the question is, can you codify a workflow? Can you explain a workflow and write it down to such a degree that it can be recreated? Because if you can, then that means we can go through that workflow step by step and determine where is an AI needed in this workflow. So I would say in almost all of our projects, it's really like, 75 to 95% traditional programming, additional logical workflow like programming. But there's 25 to 5 to 25% is AI. It's like the most critical piece. It's where the AI really delivers value, but it doesn't happen and avoid it. I think people have the misconception that like, oh, we're building an AI system, so we're just going to give it all to the AI, and the AI is just going to figure it all out and do everything, right?
Right.
But that's not the way it is. Like we have to codify that workflow. We have to break it into these smaller pieces. And then with each piece, we decide could AI be valuable here or not? Should this be just a traditional workflow piece, a traditional integration with maybe a system you already have that gets the data to the right place? And then we use the AI to do something. And then we use another traditional system to do something else. And then we hand it back to the AI. So being able to break down this workflow into a codifiable series of steps means that you've got a chance at actually recreating it using AI and automating that process with high fidelity.
Awesome. So we have got do. Now let's talk about prioritizing use cases with the
Yeah, so do gives you, you can use do and you can create a list of here's all these opportunities that we have to use AI. And that could be, I'll just give you some examples that I'll use in a minute, but like it could be something like document processing. Like we have to read all these documents, maybe for an insurance company to review, someone's policies every year to make sure they're up to date or something. So that typically falls on some person's plate, and we could use AI for that because there's a lot of data, there's expertise in the reviewer, and we have a process that we use every so often to go through that process, right? Another one might be for sales. Oh, we've got salespeople and they have to create decks and they want to customize those decks for customers. And it's a big pain in the butt. It takes them an hour every time they want to do a sales presentation. The data is the data is really like your product information. The expert is the salesperson, and the workflow is this process of customizing the deck for the client. Okay, so let's say we've got a whole list of maybe 10, 15 different do use cases. Then what we do is we say, okay, now we want to score these because there's a lot of different factors that will determine whether we can be successful in developing that use case. Where the VVV framework goes in, or we say like go vroom, VVV. So that stands for viability, velocity, and value. So viability is just like, can we build this thing?
Yeah.
There could be lots of things that get in the way of being able to build something with AI. That maybe the technology is not there. Maybe this is something that relies on, let's say, computer vision or image generation that has to work really quickly. And the models just aren't there. It takes them 15 seconds to create an image. And so that's just going to be too slow for this particular use case. And so that's not viable at the moment. We're going to have to put that one on ice. There could be other things that break viability, like maybe regulation. There's some government regulation that says you can't use AI for this, or it could even be something around culture. We did a project with an educational company, and essentially we just couldn't put an AI in front of a child. It was just deemed too risky, too dangerous. And so therefore, like that was not a viable path, or that particular use case was not going to be viable. We could find other use cases where the AI would be more hidden and there'd be less direct contact with the user, right?
Right.
So that's viability. The next thing is velocity, like how long will it take to build this thing? And here the problem is, this is kind of a new problem that we have, is that the AI landscape is developing so quickly and the tools are emerging and getting better so fast that if you have a really long project, if you say, hey, it's probably going to take us 12 months to complete this thing, then you might need to think twice about whether you want to go down that road, because 6 months from now, some new model or some new technology could come out that could completely obliviate all the work that you've been doing.
Yeah.
So our recommendation is try to stay more in the 3-month timeline. Like you need to get value right away from these systems, or have a pretty solid roadmap for how this is going to evolve with time, or how you're going to be flexible enough to pivot as the technologies emerge. And this is a real concern because we've been working on projects for like the last year, and I can't tell you how many times we've gotten to the point where we're like, oh wow, new model, we can just throw out a month worth of code because this new model just does it. Some of the new reasoning models take over some of the manual reasoning that we were doing right out of the box for like fraction of the cost. So, it's a real issue that comes up.
And when it comes to velocity, like understanding that things are changing rapidly, but also that there are larger, longer term projects where value can be unlocked through AI. Is the key there, to the extent that this is something you really prioritize, and that we'll get to value in a second, is the key there maybe to like build in the flexibility to kind of iterate or like amend and change like as things evolve? And how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think being nimble, accepting the idea that the project could change. So I think that the the place where you'll shoot yourself in the foot is to be rigid, which is not a crazy thing, right? You say, hey, I want this output. I want this new tool that does this automation for me, right? And you're steadfast. And so you basically are working towards that tool and you're got your blinders on around what technology is emerging around you. So this could put you in a competitive disadvantage, right? Like if you are building this old style thing, when new technology emerges along the way, then your competitors suddenly have access to next gen when you're in last gen. And
Yeah.
that gen was only 6 months. So yeah, being nimble and having the ability to pivot and change and adapt to the technology that comes in. And that's not easy. I'll just be totally honest. Like that's not like a cakewalk because you have to build systems that have a certain amount of flexibility in them. You need to be able to throw things away when you realize that they've been superseded. A lot of this stuff is really hard.
Is the hardest thing about throwing something away that people feel like they put a bunch of time into it and it was wasted time? Or is it that just the process of removing the code just can lead to unintended implications due to how the code was originally structured?
I mean, that can happen. I think that depends on sort of how you develop and what your integration process is. I mean, we recommend to kind of develop side by side with your existing systems, not to integrate too quickly for that reason. Because number one, it slows you down to integrate. And number two, you wouldn't want to integrate something that you're going to de-integrate later. But I think it's more the first thing you were talking about. It's actually like sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, yeah,
We
yeah.
put so much money into this thing, we have to see it through, right? Like that's just a total mistake.
Yeah, yeah, totally. In so many different ways. And then so value. Let's talk about value as
Yeah,
the
so
last
value is the key
VVV.
one. I mean, this is really, it's possible to build all kinds of cool whiz bang stuff with AI that absolutely is meaningless for your business, right? No ROI whatsoever or negative ROI. And so we see that a lot because we'll see a management team say, hey, there's a lot of pressure on people right now to build with AI, right? There's a lot of pressure to integrate into your products and into your systems to stay competitive. And so what management teams sometimes do is they'll say, okay, great, we need to use AI. We're at AI initiative. Hey, CTO, start building stuff with AI. And the CTO goes, okay, that's the chief technology officer, right? He's like, okay, I don't know how to build anything with AI. So let me go learn AI really quick. And so what that person tends to do is pick low hanging fruit. They go look for stuff that's easy to build or that they can pull off that has no value to the business. So they're not doing the deeper dive on like, where could we actually deploy something meaningful? So the value assessment is like, can we analyze this? Can we look at our actual metrics of like how this business makes money, look at our core processes, and then see, do these use cases drive ROI in those core processes? Because if it's just incidental stuff, you're really just playing around. And most likely, if it's incidental, then there's going to be some off-the-shelf tool that you can buy in a few months that will do that kind of thing. It's your core business processes are the ones that are going to get the most return on investment, right? So I'll just give you an example here. We have one client that is an educational company. They're building like an automated tutor. The automated tutor replaces TAs and people that they had, but it does it in a way that customizes all of the work to the student. So this was just not possible before because you couldn't scale up customization with the TAs. You'd need 1,000 TAs for your 10,000 students. So now you can take information about the student and it can actually go through all the core content and it can customize the lesson and do it at scale. So now you can have custom lessons for, 100, 1,000 times the number of, conversations you used to be able to have with a TA. And the TA's purpose was to kind of bring that feeling of personalization and uniqueness to the lessons, right? A bad use case is one that we ran into a few months ago, which was a sales team was wanting to customize their sales decks and use AI to custom the sales deck. And so, yeah, the sales deck, you can use an AI, there is a workflow, there's do there, like I said earlier. But how much time does it take the salesperson to do that? Like 1 hour.
Yeah.
So 1 hour times, 50 salespeople, it starts to add up, but nowhere near the return on investment that you would get for having to actually build that system, which might cost you $250,000, $500,000, right? So just do your damn job, salesperson. That's the answer to that one. And you can really, on a back of an envelope, you can kind of figure out whether it makes sense.
Yeah. Awesome. All right, Ed, thank you for introducing DEW and VVV.
Thanks for giving me the shot there, Stu. It's always great talking to you.
Awesome.